Chapter 1. The Cabin. The name's Ash, and so is this kid for some reason. You're probably saying to yourself, how the hell did he wind up here? Well, it's pretty simple. Somebody's been messing with that damn book again. Guess who has to show up and save the day? This time I'm playing babysitter, and let me tell you, it doesn't sit well with me. See what I did there? Anywho, I'm done explaining this. Tell him how it went, narrator. Oh, right. Let me see. Oh, yes. It was a long day's journey for Ash and his friends, and the sun began to set. They were lost somewhere in the woods in the outskirts of Greenfield. Growing weary after their adventurous day, they decided to call it a night. Ash, Misty, and Brock are walking close to each other with their flashlights lighting their path. Misty says, "These woods are giving me the creeps. You'd think I'd be used to this by now." Ash replies, "Yeah, you would think so, but you know Misty always has something to complain about." "Hey, that's not true. You take that back," Misty says angrily. Brock says, "Will you two knock it off? I need your help finding a clearing to set up camp." Misty sticks out her tongue, and Ash sneers at her. Pikachu was sent to scout ahead and look for a place to set up camp as well. He's about half a mile ahead of them and stumbled upon a bridge. Pikachu crossed the bridge and found an old cabin. As soon as he found it, he used his Thunderbolt attack to alert Ash and his friends that he found something. Ash saw a lightning bolt out of the corner of his eye and looked toward its direction. As the sky lit up and the thunder roared, Ash pointed at it and said, "There, Pikachu found something." Brock replied, "Let's go." A few moments later, everyone caught up to the cabin. "Wow, what a dump," said Misty. Pikachu stood frozen in front of the cabin steps. He sensed an ominous presence emitting from it and dared not to move any further. "What's the matter, Pikachu? You okay?" Ash said in a concerning tone. Pikachu said. "I don't know what's wrong with him. He seemed scared of something," said Ash. "This place does look kind of creepy," said Misty. "Come on, guys, let's just go in. We haven't had a place to stay in a while. Let's check it out," Brock said. "I guess you're right. Come on, Pikachu, let's go inside," Ash said. Pikachu refused to go inside and ran back into the forest. "Pikachu, wait!" Ash yelled. "Don't worry, Ash. He'll come back." "Don't force him to come with us. He'll be fine out there," Misty said. Brock went on the porch, knocked on the door, and said, "Hello, anyone there?" He looked through the window. It seemed to be abandoned for some time. "I don't think anyone's been here, guys." "We don't have to ask for permission to stay the night," Brock said sarcastically. "Do you think it's safe?" Misty replied. "Don't worry. Geodude and I will check it out." "Go Geodude," said Brock as he threw a Pokeball. Geodude came out of the Pokeball and clenched his fists. Brock reached his hand towards the doorknob, and the door slowly opened on its own accord with a loud creak. Everyone backed up, being startled by the door. Ash then said, "Well, that wasn't totally creepy." "It was probably the vibrations from us moving on the porch. Let's check it out," Brock said. Brock and Geodude went inside and looked around the cabin. Brock turned on the light switch and found out the electricity was still on. He thought it was kind of odd, but was appreciative. The cabin was filled with cobwebs and worn-out furniture. Brock looked to the right and saw a fireplace with a Stantler head mounted above it. He looked at it angrily because he despised Pokemon hunting. Geodude looked to the left and saw a cellar door on the floor. There was a lock on the latch and was wrapped tightly with chains. Geodude lifted it slightly to see what was inside, and a pair of glowing eyes greeted him. He screamed and startled Brock. Geodude turned around toward Brock and pointed backwards toward the cellar door. "What is it, Geodude? What happened?" said Brock. He looked at what Geodude was pointing at and only saw a carpet. "I don't see anything. What were you so scared about?" Brock said. Geodude looked back and saw the carpet as well. He scratched his head and questioned himself if he was imagining the whole scenario. They continued to search through the cabin, and all seemed to be safe. "Okay, Geodude. Looks like the coast is clear. Let Ash and Misty know it's okay." As Geodude went to alert the rest of the crew, Brock walked into a bedroom and noticed a desk in the corner of it. On it was a Pokédex with several notes next to it. He was looking through the notes and saw strange text written in a language he's never seen before. As he stroked his chin, he began to search through the drawers. Several of them were either empty or filled with junk. He then checked the bottom drawer to the right and found an old mysterious book. It was turned to its back and seemed to have a leathery texture to it. He picked it up and saw a face in front of it on the book cover. He quickly dropped it and realized it was no ordinary book. It was wrapped in a Pokemon's flesh. It was so distorted, he couldn't tell what kind of Pokemon was used to bind its cover. He was disturbed and intrigued all at once. He wanted to keep it a secret so he wouldn't deter Ash and Misty from staying for the night. He hid the book under the bed so they wouldn't find it. Brock then picked up the Pokédex to see who it belonged to. It looked like an older model he wasn't familiar with and had a thick coat of dust on it. He assumed the batteries were dead, but tried to turn it on anyway. As soon as he opened it, it turned on immediately. It showed options for notes, audio-visual files, and an ID. He looked at the ID and saw a picture and information about a man named Professor Raymond Noby. Brock heard the floorboards creak. He can hear Ash and Misty talk amongst each other. He quickly put the Pokédex in one of the desk drawers and went to catch up with the rest of his friends. "Well, it smells like a Grimer in here," said Misty. Ash replied, "Well, at least it smells better than your breath." "That's not true. I'll teach you a lesson, you little jerk," Misty said angrily. Misty began to chase Ash around the cabin, and Ash was laughing as he ran from her. Geodude sighed and went to return to Brock. He found Brock walking towards the door with one of his hands on his head. "Geodude?" Geodude said in a concerning tone. "Oh, hey. Alright, thanks, Geodude. Return." Brock retrieved Geodude back inside his Pokeball. As he got closer to the door, Ash came busting through it, knocking Brock over, and Ash and Misty trampled over him. "I'm gonna knock you silly," Misty said. Ash hid behind the bed and stuck his tongue out, blowing a raspberry. Brock got up, shook his head, and said, "Alright, guys, enough." I'm gonna see if the shower works," Misty said as she stormed off. Meanwhile, off in the distance, Pikachu is standing on a rock, staring at the cabin. He couldn't understand why he felt this overwhelming feeling of dread as he stood gazing at it from afar. He knew something was wrong. Pikachu thought to himself and said, "Should I turn back? My friends could be in danger. I can't just leave them there. I'd never felt so afraid before." Back at the cabin, Ash is setting up his sleeping bag near the fireplace. He was hoping Pikachu would return soon. Misty got the shower to work, even though the water didn't seem hot enough to her liking. Brock was alone in the bedroom staring at the book. Opposing thoughts wrestled through his mind. "Something's wrong. I should leave this thing alone. It's a bad omen. No, I'm curious. I got to see what's inside," he thought to himself. Instead, he looked at the Pokédex, hoping he would find some information about the mysterious book. He clicked on the audio file 001. The audio file played and it said, "This is Professor Raymond Noby. It's June 17th. I've obtained one of the rarest books known to mankind. It's called the Pokenomicon, a book bound in the Pokemon's flesh containing secrets of the dead. I could not tell what species it was, as it was mangled beyond recognition. I am attempting to uncover the secrets of this book and decipher the mysterious text it is written in. I obtained this in Lavender Town several years ago. Although it may seem like nonsense, I felt as if a force drew me towards it like it wanted me to find it." Ash knocks on the door and startles Brock. He pauses the recording and tries to hide it under a pillow. However, Ash opened the door quick enough and saw the Pokédex. "Hey Brock, what you got there?" said Ash. "Hey Ash, I found this old Pokédex here, and I was just looking at it to see who it belonged to," Brock replied. "Let me see it," Ash exclaimed. Ash snatched it out of Brock's hands, and Brock glared at him. "Hey, I was in the middle of looking at something in there. You can't just snatch things out of people's hands, you know," Brock said angrily. Ash accidentally fast-forwarded the audio recording and began listening to what was left of it. The recording went on and said, "As I open to the 13th passage and decipher the text, I will read this incantation from what it looks like. Klaatu, Varata, Nikto." The lights flickered in the room. Then the book slid from under the bed, and it opened up on its own. Ash dropped the Pokédex, and both Ash and Brock jumped on top of the bed, cowering in fear. Suddenly, a malevolent force awakened in the forest towards Pikachu's location. A strange howl bellowed in the forest towards Pikachu. Pikachu sensed its presence and started to dart towards the cabin to warn the others. The force was fast enough to keep up with Pikachu, and by the time it reached the front door, Pikachu braced himself to charge up to attack. Before anything could happen, Pikachu was thrown through a nearby tool shed, and he fainted upon impact. The force busted through the front door and looked around for whoever recited the passage. Misty heard commotion outside the bathroom door and quickly got dressed. The force then busted through the bathroom door, and Misty let out a blood-curdling scream.